What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Gray Matters podcast. I'm your host, Josh Perry.
And I'm your other host, Jackie Lauricella.
And today we have one of our good friends, Josh Morse, joining us. So I'm just going to give a brief background of Josh and I's relationship and then let him take it away, and then we'll just dive more into it. Does that sound all right with you, Jackie?
Yeah. Should we establish a name like Second Josh so we know who's like who's
Technically, he's older, so.
So you're Second Josh today.
I'm JP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So real quick, Josh Morse and I connected back when we were about 16, 17-ish, back in the New England area. Both grew up riding BMX, and mutual friends led us to a session at Rye Airfield, I believe. And then from there, we just kept, having sessions together, progressing with BMX, found our way to Greenville, North Carolina, pursuing the ultimate BMX dream, which has evolved from there today. But Josh and I took different routes around 2012, 11, 12, 13?
11, 12, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so we went on different ventures, exploring different avenues of life, thanks to BMX, leading us there. But we reconnected about a year ago, stayed in touch via social media every now and then just reconnected about last year, mid-year, sometimes almost a year ago now, just more and more in touch. And then now we'll get into the specifics, but now Josh is actually moving from Denver, Colorado out here to Raleigh, North Carolina in a couple months, and figured while he's visiting, doing some business, handling some business, we would get him on the podcast to chat and let us share his story with all of you guys and his incredible mindset. And that's what this is all about, exploring human potential with the mind and then how that manifests. So welcome to the podcast, Josh.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
So that was my perspective of us. But for those that don't know, I know you've been sharing this more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear the bullets of the journey from New Hampshire days to what you're up to today, what you're doing specifically today, future goals, and just kind of anything in between before we kind of dive deeper.
Yeah, so start from the beginning. I'm originally from Manchester, New Hampshire. Started riding BMX when I was like 12 or so. Kind of became an obsession. At 18, I had the opportunity to move out, so I did. Lived in a couple states. Actually, at one point, like you mentioned, we both lived in Greenville, North Carolina together. Did BMX for a few years.
Landscape part-time a little bit.
Yeah, we can get into that too, I guess. But, so did BMX for a little bit. Wasn't some top athlete, but I was doing shows and contests and had many failures and had great moments too. Then from there, basically, overnight, it kind of just hit me one day. I was like, man, I got to leave what I'm doing and kind of start pursuing the idea of, financial freedom to a degree, but also mindset and, the subconscious mind and conscious, and started learning about energy. And long story short, went to Austin, Texas, where I really started having a lot of success. Then made a drastic change, moved to Denver, Colorado.
Let's back up.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know. There's
in Greenville, because I know the
directions.
story, so I want you to hit certain points. In
Sure.
Greenville, there was a pivotal moment, I'd say, in this journey where you are now that led you to going to Austin, that led you to Denver, that led you to here. So
Sure.
there is a unique, make it or break it for you moment where you had to decide Buffalo Wild Wings, flipping phone. What was it that you actually started before you went to Austin? Because you tried to bring that to Austin.
Yeah. So when I was in Austin, I was riding BMX. Basically, long story short, I blew my knee out really bad one day. And
When you're Greenville or Austin?
Greenville.
Greenville, okay.
Yeah, and I was doing shows before that, and basically, I blew my knee out, and at first, I didn't know how bad of an injury. I thought I broke my leg in half. I didn't know, blowing your knee out was a thing. So once I found out how bad it really was, my mind was all right, I'm just going to get back on the bike, figure it out, right? Because that's all I know. And I would always be dwelling over my knee slipping, so it would always pop and slip.
Did you go to the doctor?
Yeah, he told me don't do knee replacement, try to build a muscle around it.
Okay.
But what's interesting is my mind was always kind of hesitant, oh my God, I might slip my knee, right? Mm-hmm. So I would slip it. I probably slipped it 20, 30 times. And at this time, I started just kind of running into like Napoleon Hill and Earl Nightingale and really learning about mindset and energy. And part of it was like, okay, well, if you want to self-heal, the first thing is you got to convince your mind. So I started convincing my mind that there was no issues, even though I could feel the pain. Mm-hmm. But basically, long story short, ever since I just did that little transition, I started doing a lot better, like never slipped my knee since. But during this time, it kind of hit me. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be doing shows or anything anymore. So I got a job at Buffalo Wild Wings, which was awful. It was horrible. And I remember at one point, I needed money to buy food, so I sold my iPhone 4 for AT&T. Got $420 or something like that for it, and immediately it hit me like I was looking for something to do, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I can do this again. So the next day, I looked for the same phone, found one for $300, and the same day I sold it for $450, and it kind of just triggered me, and I just became super obsessed with flipping that money. So long story short, I started making like 3 times the amount that Buffalo Wild Wings could pay me on a full-time job. Technically, I was actually doing like 60 hours at Buffalo Wild Wings, and I was making 3 times the amount, and I was kind of nervous to quit my job, but I did it. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I realized, I'm in Greenville, North Carolina. It's only so populated, and I got to look at the economics of other cities, where I can create more opportunity, right? A bigger pie, more opportunity for success. So I ended up making a drastic decision and moving to Austin, Texas. And I was like, all right, well, all my business will just come with me. And like I had all my expenses planned. Well, once I got to Austin, I didn't know anybody, and I started trying to build my business out there. And I learned really quick that all my business in North Carolina did not come with me. So long story short, I started depleting through my savings really fast. And I had this idea in my mind that I heard from a good friend of mine, John Reed, who you know as well. He said he had a friend that was making like $10,000 a month at Verizon. And ironically, I actually applied for that job when I was in Greenville, and the hiring manager said I didn't have what it takes. So I was like, okay, whatever, like I just went on with my day. Well, long story short, I was looking for phones just like any other day, and I met up with this chick at 7-Eleven, and she's just selling me a phone, and she has a brand new car, and I'm like, what do you do for work? She goes, I'm a recruiter for Verizon. And I'm like, what the heck? So basically moving forward, 3 months later, I'm like running out of money completely. And I had a conversation with her where she's like, oh my God, you'd be perfect. Like, you got to apply. So I hit her up, and she's like, yeah, I'll totally get you a job. And I remember going through the interview process, and the GM's like, I've never even hired somebody without a car. Like, I didn't have a car, and I was riding like 5-10 miles to work, to the interview on a bike. He's like, what are you gonna do? Like, you gotta go like 30 miles to like these 4 locations. And I'm like, dude, I'm a sponge. Like, I'll learn. Just give me the opportunity. I'll figure it out.
Sponge on wheels.
So I went from like Greenville, where I could have just like hung out, probably built the business and left it there, to making a drastic decision to moving somewhere I didn't know. And the story keeps going on.
Well, 2 things I want to talk about is, one, BMX and persistence. Both of you, or 3 of us, are all really passionate about mindset and consciousness.
Yeah.
And something I wasn't really aware of until a few years ago was when you fall down in BMX, you hit the ground, it hurts. It's not just a mental fear or something like that, but like you develop this mental and physical persistence to do something you want. And also, I remember when you started getting into flipping phones, you were always like, hey man, how much do you make? Hey, how much did that cost? You're always trying to figure out numbers. And I was like, why the fuck do you care so much about what people are making? And because I didn't know what you were doing at the time, I just thought you were working at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Totally.
And so as the years went on, I started making connections. So what I really want you to share with us is what is your perspective with the BMX persistence piece that developed, and this whole like...
And your hustle mindset.
Yeah, the hustle mindset. Because I'm learning for myself, too, as I took a step away, like 100%, as you know, I started risks from the BMX industry side and how I support myself to do what I'm doing today. But now learning about other athletes in business. And it's like that sport, business is exactly like a sport to us now. Because you can progress. So how did those things kind of mesh for you to what it looks like today?
So BMX is a great way to build awesome foundations of habits. Whether that's persistence, just discipline, you crash so many times, but you're so obsessed with learning that trick that you're willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost feel like you're immortal in a sense, like you can just smash your shins and they're bleeding and you don't even feel it, right?
Adrenaline.
Yeah. So it just,
yeah.
and I think naturally for me, I've always been like someone that's always like going, and I basically took that obsession and that focus, and I just literally moved it into other things in my life. So yeah, BMX was huge in the sense of like, building that foundation, because it can be really hard, especially when you're transitioning and you have no experience with, whatever you're trying to accomplish, that having that focus and that drive and that dream, right? Because when you do these tricks, you're dreaming them in your head.
Vision.
Yeah, and you're basically creating into reality over time. Well, it's the same concept with anything else. So I took literally that same mentality towards basically everything I do.
Yeah, I love it.
So where did you live when you first moved to Austin?
When I first moved to Austin, I had a friend, and she's like, "Hey, I know this guy. He actually needs to rent a room out, and you can just move in with him." So I didn't know him or anyone.
Yeah. And just knew no one, had no family there, no friends there. You were just like, I'm moving to Austin.
Yeah, literally. I've never even been to Austin.
Oh my God.
I didn't have a car, so I took Greyhound from Greenville to Austin. It took me three days to get there.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's a leap.
Oh, and my room didn't have AC, by the way.
Oh no. Did you have like a window unit or anything?
No, not even a window unit.
In Texas?
Yeah, it was bad.
That sounds awful. That sounds terrible.
So you were so set on this desire to achieve more, financially, spiritually, just in general.
Yeah.
There was some more shit that happened as you started creating success with Verizon. There was a car issue.
Yeah.
And then there were some other things. Let's talk about that.
So, well, when I started going through the training for Verizon, there was a 2-week training process. And on the last day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit. Because I was nervous that people were going to judge me because I'm dyslexic. Maybe I can't read out loud perfect. All I've ever learned is go to college, you get the right education. So I always thought in my mind, people were smarter than me or better than me.
To be clear, you didn't go to college.
No, I did not.
Yeah.
So.
Did you finish high school?
Barely.
So, one up to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I remember the last day, probably an hour before work, and I got to ride my bike. It was 5 or 10 miles away. I can't remember the distance, but I was like, I'm just going to quit. I'm going to just figure something else out. And then probably 30 minutes before that, I was like, a voice in my head was just like, yo, go. You don't know anyone here. Who cares? And I've never honestly really ever cared what anybody thought about me. So I was like, I was totally right. I was like, why not? So long story short, I get the job. 3 days into it, I make no money. And I asked my good friend Udiel during this time. He was my mentor. He's top rep within the company. I'm like, hey, is this real? Dude, I got no money, bro. He's like, yeah, just stick with it, whatever. And anyways, I ended up buying a car for $5,500. It was this Mazda 6-speed wagon.
I remember you were always into cars back in Greenville.
Always, yeah.
Always fixing them up, always messing with the clutches and all that.
Everything, yeah. And so I get this car, and I'm like, all right, I got to ride to work. I told my boss I'd figure it out, got the car, whatever. Literally, days later, I blow the engine on the car.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I blow the engine, and the mechanic's like, yeah, it's gonna be $5,500 to replace the engine.
Shut up.
Yeah. So, and I have no money, and I'm making no money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, crap.
Ride a bike.
What do I do, right? Crap. So I called my grandparents, and I called my good friend Kyle Doney, and basically I maxed out my resources on money I could even raise, and I got the money from both of them, paid interest as well. And got the car fixed and kept working the job. But long story short, if I didn't go to that interview, or I didn't stay persistent, I didn't chase these ideas in my mind, I would have never been able to. The next month I started making $10,000 a month or something with the company. So I went from having no money, in debt, to 2.5 months later, $15,000 in the bank. And all debts paid.
That's sick.
Did you find yourself I feel like there are many BMX athletes that get a big paycheck for the first time, and it's not necessarily I'm going to make this into more money. It's I'm going to lease this car, or I'm going to like buy this watch like right away.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself in a situation like that, or were
No.
you just like, I'm just going to hang on to this forever?
No, I remember being at Verizon. I was like the #1 rep, and they used to call me like cheap money Morse. Because dude, I was just like stacking dough. Like I remember I had like 30 racks in my ceiling. I had money in the bank. Like
Oh my god.
it was crazy. Like I was just saving every penny.
Still driving the Mazda?
Yeah, I drove the Mazda for a while, but you know my obsession with cars, I sold it and got another
yeah,
car.
for sure.
Yeah, but I lost $5,500 on that car because it's a big engine. So
Damn.
yeah.
I wish I was something I'm really passionate about is sharing all the things that you and I have been talking about lately. I've been learning from you, been learning from other resources about like investing your money because I grew up on Cape Cod. It wasn't necessarily about college unless you want to be a doctor or a lawyer. It was about getting a trade and owning your own business and working. Like college wasn't a thing really for the majority, especially my family. But my mom taught me from a young age, work hard and save your money. But never, she didn't know and I didn't know. Like it was never like save your money for something like investing to make you more money. And so that's been a huge shift for me. And I remember
it's like
when
just in case money.
Yeah, it's just like just to have, and that's a mindset everyone has. Like just in case, like it's like this insurance plan.
Yeah.
For when shit does happen, let's be protected.
Yeah.
But when I won my first pro contest, as you remember, I won the best trick, and I sold the Harley I won.
Oh,
made
Jomo
more
Pro,
money. Yeah. And my mentality wasn't like buy nice things. It was pay off my bills for the rest of the year because I don't know when this money's going to come up and I want to be safe with it. I want to spend it wise. Now, had I been in the mindset I am now, knowing the things I am now or have learned now, I would have done it so differently. I would have done it differently for sure.
I think I should like put a disclaimer though. I don't mean like young
But
BMX
no,
athletes
but
like get a big check. Any young person that starts to get big
that's
money.
The majority of
involved,
people.
especially if you come from an environment where there might not have been a lot of money. It's either like saving, like you just save to that and you hang on to it, or it's like you've never been taught how to handle money like that, so you just like buy bullshit.
Or it's like some people we know, they get made fun of for what they're doing. Maybe they're doing something different. And then they have this success moment and they're like, oh, I'm going to show you. I'm going to buy this watch, this car. And they don't remember that they have taxes on top of it. And they're out of money as well. So this is really interesting because that's something I've come across now. We're both, I'm 30, you're 32, correct? So we're still really young, but something I'm really like why I wanted you to come on here is because I believe our audience is from a younger age to an older age, but getting to that mindset of like what Grant Cardone talks about, targets, not just making enough to get by, but what is some other targets you can set and then don't store that money to reinvest it to make more, which I've been learning a ton from you about that. And I've been sharing it with Jackie now. I've been sharing it with Brian.
Before we move there, maybe we should go, what happened after Verizon? Like, so you started making good money.
That was going to lead into
Verizon.
that because that stuff started changing after that moment. Started making more money with Verizon.
And then what happened?
Because you paid Kyle back. Kyle also is a good friend of ours that rode BMX back in Greenville. You guys started, just a little backstory, you guys started a vending machine business out in Colorado originally, didn't you?
No, actually, even before that, when I started my cell phone business in North Carolina, he started kind of like helping me sell all my product.
Oh, okay.
So that's originally where it started, and we were always like masterminding the next business venture. We were looking into sweepstake machines, all types of businesses. But he bought a vending machine separately. I didn't buy that.
Oh, okay. So that was just him. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you're now making $10, $15 a month.
Yep.
Paid back your debts.
Debt-free, cruising.
Yeah. So I probably spent a little over a year at Verizon making good money, and literally I just rebuilt my whole business from scratch. So now I had investment capital, more than I've ever made in my life. So I had enough money where I could be like a pretty big bulk buyer. Like, hey, I mean, there would be times I'd buy $40,000 worth of product at one time, which when in Greenville, I wasn't doing that. Yeah. So I was able to scale the business pretty fast and started making more money than Verizon. So then, so I ended up quitting Verizon and I was doing the phones for a good amount of time.
That's awesome. So how did the transition happen to Colorado?
So Kyle and I, we've been working together since
was
basically
he already out there?
Yeah, he was already out there, and we've been working together since day one. So we were talking. He's like, dude, like I'm super busy with my phone business right now, but I really want to do real estate. And he had probably like 3 transactions under his belt during this time, just basic MLS purchases. I think one off Craigslist, but he was like, yo, come out here and let's just do real estate. And I was like, all right. So same thing. I packed all my stuff. This time I actually had a car, so I actually towed everything. But
had you been there before?
once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one
That's
time.
a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah, and the only person I knew was Kyle, but I was like, all right, let's do it. So,
Baby steps.
so yeah, I just, I love being uncomfortable. I like making like big life-changing decisions, primarily with business or income. So, I was like, all right, let's do it. So I packed my bags, I moved out there, and started just like, I knew with business it was all about product or service. Either create the service or find the product, and then you can create revenue for your business, right? So my first thing was just like, all right, I know the post on Craigslist. Craigslist always has made me money. I buy houses on Craigslist. I just started putting ads. I never bought a damn house in my life, so I just like, that's just what I started doing. I just knew that that's how I get the product.
You had shirts like that too. I buy houses.
Shirts, I wrapped my truck, yeah, everything. So I got like real serious. So yeah, I moved to Colorado, started posting on Craigslist. My first month in real estate, I get this guy that calls me. He's like, hey, I got this property on Bolson Way. Want to come check it out? Long story short, there's tons of tricks and methods to real estate. I knew none of them. So like, I let him draft up the whole contract. Like, I let him fully control the situation. But got it under contract, and I just knew the next thing I do, just put the house back on Craigslist. Yeah. So I put it on Craigslist. Eventually I found a buyer and closed it in a month and made $48,500.
Yourself or together with Kyle?
Together with Kyle, yeah. Nice. I told Kyle, I was like, yo, just jump in, I'll give you 50-50. We've always taken care of each other since day one, so.
Kyle's good, dude. Yeah. That's sick. And that's how you guys started your business, was that transaction.
Yeah, straight up. And we just like, same thing, that obsessive like mentality, just like, when you're trying to figure out a trick back in the day, or you're transitioning into a new career, that mentality is what we did. Literally just super obsessed.
Yeah. Awesome. I think something really important to note is that you said you enjoy being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because change in life is inevitable, but so many people are resistant to change, and because they don't like being uncomfortable, and it causes like stagnation in their life. So I think usually successful people enjoy that discomfort, and they enjoy that challenge and kind of like turning over new rocks as much as they can and that kind of thing. Yeah,
I always describe it like, everybody's genetically different, right? Some people are allergic to certain things. Some people wake up earlier and can operate. And I think it's just super important to, try to figure out your genetic code as best as possible in the way that you operate and function cognitively. And for me, I like being uncomfortable. I can't just stay still, do the same thing. Like, if I'm not growing, I'll literally have a midlife crisis. Yeah. I have a midlife crisis if I wake up at 8:30 traditionally. So yeah.
Well, it's like your body, even with exercise, it enjoys consistency, but you're not going to see progress unless you change things up a little bit. Yeah. So if you like do the same workout every day, or if you eat the same thing every day and you're like trying to lose weight or trying to gain muscle, like you have to break the cycle eventually in order to do that. And I think it's the same thing for mental health and mental growth. Like, it's uncomfortable. Like, and it can be really uncomfortable sometimes. And people that don't consistently put themselves in uncomfortable situations, or even, I shouldn't say consistently, like, just try it like a couple of times a year, at least, and put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and like really see how you grow as a person.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things we take away from BMX is that risk.
Yeah.
You mentioned a lot of different risks, that you've taken in business, risks that I've taken in business, but like having that risk factor to do a trick, but applying that to other areas of life that can benefit you more than just the self-gratification of landing a trick, but that can like make your future better. Yeah. I think is what, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I feel like you and I have in common, or the three of us have in common about moving forward, is like, maybe this is good now, I enjoy this, but like, what risk should I be taking to grow? Because if you're, Colonel and Ray taught me this too, like if you're not uncomfortable, if you're not stressed, in a not balanced, I hate that word, but like in a moderate way, there's no growth.
Yeah.
Being uncomfortable allows you to grow, allows you to progress.
Well, that's how you're growing, right? Like, if you're doing the same thing every day and you're comfortable, you're probably not growing.
100%.
Yeah. And understanding that failure isn't the worst thing that could possibly happen. I think I really admire that about BMX athletes, and like watching them like fall on their face like over and over and over again, and then when they finally land the trick, it's like that was so much more worth it than like avoiding those falls.
That regret.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like that was so much more rewarding and fulfilling, and like even going through those falls, it's like, oh, like, did you see me eat shit that one time? Like, that was crazy. And then it's like better for whatever reason afterwards, like after you take those spills. And to land a trick on the first try, it's like really nice, but you know, like it feels better to like have to work for it.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because how do I describe this? In BMX, you crash so much, right? And it's very similar to anything else in life. You know, because what you don't know, you don't know. So you got to start off with either your first real estate transaction or, you know, your first business or your first Excel sheet, and you eat shit or you fail a bunch until you master, you know, what you're doing. Yeah. So it's very similar in the sense of like really anything.
Yeah.
For sure.
And you definitely like learn more than people that have things handed to them their whole life. You know, it's like it's not their fault. Like they're like fortunate or have people.
They're not challenged.
But like when something does go wrong, if you have a person who's on top and in charge of business, who's like failed and gone down and up and down and up and down and up to reach where they are, as opposed to like someone who's just like climbing steadily, like they're gonna know how to handle that situation and it's not gonna like completely break them or shatter their reality in some kind of way. So it's like, yeah, you can get handed everything, but just like keep it together when like shit gets real, you know, because it's going to.
Yeah, emotional stamina is extremely important in life with really anything. You know, controlling your thoughts, controlling your mind, and you know, be able to think with a clear mind as much as possible to make educated decisions as best as possible.
Yeah, not acting off emotion, but actions off of conscious thought, I think has been big for me, understanding that, not just emotionally making a decision, but really thinking about it.
Yeah.
Do you practice or do anything to like stay with that clarity and that like the decision-making ability? What do you do to harness that? Yeah,
I definitely do. And part of that is I try not to take notes and remember that. And I know that sounds weird because most people like to take notes, but I try not to take the notes.
So many notes, this guy.
Yeah, and everybody has their
certain areas. Yeah. Things to not forget to do, yes. But what like people ask me, do you meditate? And I'm like, I try to all the time, but so like hard. For some reason, like I've gotten to the point where it's just like everything I learn, I just try to implement, and by doing action, I find that that's my sense of meditation. Like just being in that moment and focus and doing. I think action trumps anything. So if you're gonna take action to meditate but not do the things you're meditating for, it's like, and Gary Vee actually helped me with this. He's like, I don't meditate because I don't want to change. I don't want to change my being.
He's like,
so
I feel like I'm so
on
good
just
right now.
Going.
That was the best.
But then some people that I look up to, like Kerwin Ray, meditates twice a day. Dr. Joe Dispenza. So like, I kind of want to, you know, approach these things with a, you know, some more effort to do them. But I don't know, this seems like the same for you, but like just doing is almost like it's better than taking notes, because by doing, you're teaching yourself again what you're learning.
Well, action is extremely critical, but also when it comes to like memory, what I do is I try to remember everyone's name. So that's something I remember when I first started focusing on this. You don't realize it until you start doing it. And I remember these times where someone introduced themselves and say, "Hey, my name is John." 2 seconds later, I forgot what their name was.
Oh, I do that all the time.
So I realized, I was like, let me start just trying to remember everyone's name by the first time that they say their name. So that's one little trick. Or I take nootropics or tropics, whatever you call it.
And ketones.
Yeah, all types of stuff. I'm hopped up on stuff.
Who is that guy who's...
Jim Quick.
Yeah, Jim Quick, the memory coach. Like, that's like literally his first tip is like, just start remembering people's names.
Yeah, he also argues, he's like, if you were going to get $1 million from that person, you'd remember their name, wouldn't you?
Right,
totally.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you don't see value in them, it's so easy to forget their name. And I think that's something to be genuinely accepting of, like, everyone has value.
Yeah. And
you never know. Like, you know, like Gary Vee talks about, you don't know if that one view you got in your video out of, you know, all you got was one view. You don't know if that dude, John's Aunt Sally, runs Fox News Network and can hook you up. Like, so I think it's interesting because I've been on the same path, like meeting people and trying to remember their names and, like, you know, repeat their name right away. But, like, just whatever you can remember, it's like a challenge for sure.
Yeah, there's a couple habits that I've realized throughout my life that are extremely critical, like persistence, organization skills, memory, focus, discipline. So just certain habits that I've for myself have learned are extremely critical with the outcome of, you know, what you're trying to accomplish.
For sure. This has been an amazing journey, and it's got a shit ton left to go.
Yeah.
Right now, what would you say your main takeaway has been? If you had to distill all this into one takeaway from New Hampshire to now, what would be one takeaway? And then what one piece of advice would you give anyone, whether they're starting a business, been in business for years, or they're transitioning from one business to another, maybe a genre, or just from one business to another?
Yeah, I mean, focus on just habits in general. Just what are you doing every day? What is your mind thinking about? You know, catch yourself when you're thinking and see what you're thinking about. Taking massive action on those habits. Action is so critical. It's insane. Like, you know, I always describe it like this. You can go to the gym, you can know nothing about how to curl a weight or do anything. But if you're at the gym every day and you're taking massive action at the gym, something is going to transform from that.
Something's going to click, yeah.
And over time, it builds and grows from there. So that's what I would recommend. And for anyone starting a business, take freaking action.
Yeah.
Like, just quit thinking about it, or quit putting your whole business plan and all this stuff. Like, I hear people trying to present their business plans to me, and I'm like, yo, that business plan, you've never been in this industry, and now you have a business plan, that plan is going to go so far left. Like, you're not going to be ready for it. So don't even, just take massive action. Don't overthink, and just do.
Awesome.
Love it. I need to listen to that. I need to heed those words. That is something that I do. Analysis paralysis. Yeah. I'm like super guilty of that.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yep. Yeah.
Just
100%.
Really focus on, you know, going through that pain, because if you don't know, you don't know. So you're going to feel uncomfortable if you're growing. Like, that's just the game.
Yeah.
I have tons of uncomfortable moments. I'm not immortal or like superhuman. I just operate on a crazy level of action and pray to God it works out to a degree, right?
Well, I think that's what I love. I mean, besides our names being the same, we have a similar background with BMX that developed this mindset for you have a desire, and this is step one of Think and Grow Rich. I mean, you have a desire.
Yep.
The rest is going to happen if you take action, you believe in that desire. But if that desire is strong enough, nothing's going to stop you.
Yeah.
So, you know, you start learning about, you talk about planning and like all the organization, discipline, like faith and like the unknown, like all these things. It's predicated on that desire.
Yeah.
If that desire is strong enough, you'll succeed. But most people don't believe in their desire enough to do the work and to be persistent.
Yeah.
And I think that we learned that from a young age with BMX, because you slam to the ground. It doesn't just mentally hurt. There's no fear of judgment. There's that and pain.
Yeah.
You've been broke off. I've been broke off.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that translates really well. And so...
Oh, yeah, and you're working your ass off and you make no money.
You're just living the dream.
Yeah. Just risk your life every time you do something and still not make any money.
Yep.
So I know you're working on a website. The lovely Jackie here is helping you on the website. So we'll put that link, by the time this comes out, we'll have that URL in the show notes.
Yep.
Where else can people find you if they want to reach out to ask advice, get you on their podcast, just follow your journey? Because I know you're going to be learning. You've been learning more about content thanks to Brian and I. But where can people find you?
Yeah, content game. I got to get better at my content game. But Instagram, Joshua P. Morse, like Morse code. So Joshua P. Morse. You can find me on Facebook. And joshuapmorse.com when it comes out.
What's your website out here for the new business?
Oh, and properhomesale.com.
Awesome.
Proper home sale. He buys houses.
Or now we're moving into apartment buildings, so that's Proper MF Holdings. You can take the MF any way you want.
That's awesome.
Any which way you please.
Well, awesome, Josh. Well, appreciate you coming on. It's been an amazing journey, just from New Hampshire days to these days, growing up, riding bikes, and then now, starting our own businesses and sharing that with other people, which I think is a huge indication of success in a leader to me, is not just being selfish about it or greedy, but like, how can we help others? We've been doing that with each other.
Yep.
We've been doing that with other people, mentoring people, sharing things like this. I know your content game is going to just start improving here because of the value you want to share.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge indication of a successful leader. I think there needs to be more about that. That's what this podcast is about, just sharing these beliefs. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. And
yeah, thanks for having me. And it was great.
Awesome. Well, that is the Joshua Morse. And we appreciate you guys joining in. If you guys got any questions for Josh, what he does, anything we may have left out that you're curious about, just let us know. You know where to find us. Josh Perry BMX.
JCIAKE on Instagram.
So let us know anything we can do to provide you guys more value. We're here to support you. We love you guys. We appreciate your valuable time. And again, my name is Josh Perry.
And I'm Jackie Lauricella.
And this has been an awesome time on the Gray Matters podcast.